On behalf of the City of Yonkers Parks Department and Untermeyer Gardens, welcome back to what I hope is nearing the end of summer here at Untermeyer Gardens. It's been a very dry year, been very difficult to keep plants display worthy and everything happy and healthy. But here we are where our annuals are really putting on their biggest show. And here inside the walled garden, which is an Indo-Persian garden, this year we're celebrating pelargoniums, much like when we planted marigolds several years ago, which were very important in the Indian culture. Pelargoniums are very important in the Persian culture. So we're trying to have fun with some jewel tone colors of pelargoniums this year. Just for clarification, a lot of us know these pelargoniums as annual geraniums, which are very different or somewhat different in the same family, but an entirely different genus than our perennial geraniums. We know these pelargoniums sort of as stork's bills. That's where the name comes from in the Greek because of the seed pod, looks like a stork's bill. Our perennial geraniums are called crane's bills, and they are in a different genus of geranium. I'm not enough of a birder to know the difference between a crane's bill and a stork's bill as represented by seed pods, but there you go. So what many people know as scented geraniums or annual geraniums are really pelargoniums. We planted a lot of jewel tone colors here this year, and to set those off, and I was going to go all pelargoniums at the beginning of the year, but I can't help myself but throwing diversity in. And one plant I've been really pleased with is this Biden's. It's called Pretty in Pink. It requires no deadheading, a very vigorous plant, and adds a really nice bicolor pink purple color to these beds. Next to that is a genus of plant, a species of plant that I rarely can do without. It's a Salvia greggii here in this deep purple. This is from the Mirage series, and it's called Mirage Deep Purple. Next to that is a plant we've used a lot in these annual beds as well, which is a Gomphrena. This is a quite a bit shorter version than some of the Gomphrena we've used in the past. But this one is buddy purple and gets these really deep purple flowers all season long, requires almost zero deadheading, a very generous plant. A plant we've often only used in containers is this Calibrachoa, this deep purple sort of small petunia. This one is called Eyeconic Blue. Again, in horticulture, if it's deep enough purple, we start to call it blue. And then a really fun plant that sets it all off with foliage is this ornamental pepper that's just behind the Calibrachoa. This is a pepper called Black Pearl, and I think that can be as much for the really deep dark leaves as it is for these early emerging fruit of the dark purple, which then sort of turns into a translucent red as well and adds a little bit of splash of red to these borders. So again, we like to have a lot of fun in these borders. They're very temporary, they're our annuals, and we try to be bold and a little bit wacky when we plant these things. So here I am in the surround of the reflecting pool in front of the amphitheater where we continue our annual planting. We do like to change this from our canal borders just a little bit every season. And one of the things we have fun with is really using what people maybe think are ubiquitous or overused or even cliche plants. And we've talked about the pelargoniums, and a lot of people think the pelargoniums fit into that. In fact, when we first planted, we had a visitor come by and said, "What, you usually plant such interesting things. It looks like you bought all your plants from Lowe's this year," which is kind of the reaction we were looking for. But as far as pelargoniums, one I want to introduce to you that I don't think a lot of people are aware of are these Martha Washington types. They have a very interesting leaf. The foliage has a completely different texture than what we usually think of as our annual geraniums, and the flowers have a bit more interest. They're bigger, they're not as numerous, maybe not as showy, but a lot of fun. We've really liked using them here with more ornamental pepper, which you can see the pale purple. It's next to a Duranta with this great chartreuse yellow foliage. It's a Duranta called Cuban Gold. And another maybe overused plant, or at least a traditional plant that we've thrown in this year, and I've been really happy with, is this Cleome. Some people may know it as a spider flower. This is a cultivar called Clio Magenta. It's a bit of a dwarf Cleome, but the thing is, it flowered from the second we put it in the ground all the way up until now. You can sort of see the seed pods that are left behind, but again, requires no deadheading and just keeps putting on flowers all season long. And I'm standing in front of this border on the north end of the garden where we lost a yew hedge that just wasn't really performing well. We didn't have time to get it planted in the spring, so we threw some annuals in here as well. So we have the sunflower and the hibiscus and some zinnias and a lot of fun. We have this campsis vine growing up behind me as well. So you shouldn't think about just limiting your annuals to an annual planting. It's a great way to fill holes in borders or to cover some mistakes or things you can't quite get to in the spring. Speaking of sunflowers, I think next time we get together for one of these chats, we'll look at some sunflowers down in our vegetable garden. Thanks so much.